Welcome to the Botany Bistro, where we're serving up bite-sized botany for you to munch on as you savor the science of plants. My name's Mary, and I'll be your botanist. Today's menu includes an exploration of plants in the Liliaceae family. The Liliaceae family is currently home to 15 genera and about 600 species. That is a significant change from having 300 genera and over 4,000 species when it was first introduced, and just became a little bit of a catch-all for certain plants with certain characteristics. But the current Liliaceae family has just about 600 species. Make sure you're doing your research carefully when you're looking at plants in this family, as many sources still list plants in this family that have been reassigned to other families. This family has a lot of economic importance for ornamental plants. You have probably had Liliaceae plants in your home in the form of a bouquet, or also decorating our front lawns and public spaces as the tulips emerge in the spring. The Liliaceae includes plants that are part of the monocot group. These monocots tend to be perennials. They also tend to grow from bulbs, which are underground storage units for them to hold on to some energy as they come back for future seasons. Many of these plants also have flower parts in threes, and so we'll be talking a little bit more about the characteristic flowers of this plant family and how useful they can be in education. Most angiosperms, also known as flowering plants, can be divided into two different groups, monocots and dicots. Monocots are plants that have a single cotyledon in their seed, which results in one single leaf being emerged after germination, versus dicots that have two cotyledons, and so after germination they have two separate seed leaves that emerge. Monocots also tend to have parallel veins in their leaves, versus dicots that tend to have netted veins in their leaves. This large group includes grasses, lilies, and many other species. Monocots also tend to have their reproductive parts arranged in threes, and so we'll see that evidenced in these flowers as we start to get a closer look at them. Plants in the Liliaceae have wonderful opportunities for education. They have these very bold, bright petals and sepals, which are hard to differentiate, which means that they are classified as tepals. You'll notice that that is similar to our discussion about the Magnoliaceae family. And they also have these very easily recognizable stamens and pistils. We'll cover a couple of those terms a little bit later when we go into our dissection. However, it is important to note that in botanical terms, these flowers are considered complete and perfect. Being perfect means that these flowers have both stamens and pistils, which represents both the male and female parts of the flower. A flower that is considered complete has all four floral organs, which means they have sepals, petals, stamens, and pistils. And so these flowers are wonderful representations of all of those different pieces. These flowers produce nectar at their base, and so they are pollinated by bees, wasps, butterflies, and moths. Here in Ohio, one of our native Ohio wildflowers is in the Liliaceae family, and this is our trout lily. The trout lily comes up early in the spring and has these kind of speckled basal leaves. The leaf markings of trout lilies are similar to the markings on brown or brook trout. They tend to grow in colonies, and each pair of leaves is usually clasping a single stem that will produce a flower. This flower is pendulous, hangs down, and those tepals will fold back so that you can see those beautiful stamens. If you have a clump of trout lily that is not producing flowers, it might be time to divide that clump so that it has a little bit more space to breathe and live. You can wait to do your divisions until after the flowering time, and so make sure you're marking where those plants are, because the leaves tend to die back, and the best time to dig those up would actually be mid to late summer, and then you can divide them out and you can plant those bulbs in other areas, making sure that you're keeping them in part shade, moist soils that are slightly acidic. You can collect seed from this species. You'd want to do that as they mature later in the season, and you would actually want to plant those seeds right away. You don't want to store those seeds as they lose viability over time. Since this is an ephemeral species, you're going to want to make sure that you mark where you put them, or else you might be compacting that soil or accidentally cutting them back as they're coming up. So mark them, protect them, and you should be able to see a flush of new leaves in the spring. Other members of the Liliaceae that you might be familiar with are Asiatic or ornamental lilies. Asiatic lilies tend to be very bold and bright. However, they don't have much, if any, fragrance, versus ornamental lilies that can have a nice, strong fragrance, but their colors tend to be a little bit lighter. This lily that I have right here is very fragrant. I wish we had smell-o-vision on the bistro today. While this plant family doesn't have much edible economic importance, it is very popular in ornamental trade. And the tulips actually are responsible for one of the first financial speculation boom and busts that were ever recorded in history. You may have heard about tulip mania, and we're gonna dig into that just a little bit. The Netherlands, then as now, are one of the largest producers of tulips in the world. While tulips regularly were traded and had cost associations with them and different varieties, tulip mania really took off in about 1634 and crashed in 1637. So it wasn't a very long time. The onset of this very exciting exchange of trade in bulbs was brought on by actually a virus that was spread by aphids that caused a breaking in the flower color of the petal. And so instead of a single color of this petal, you would see kind of these brush strokes of white and colored. White and red tended to be one of the more popular ones. Some of these bulbs were going for 5 times the cost of a house at the time, or 10 times the amount of the annual salary of certain artisans working in the country. The result of this virus not only produced these very interesting tulip patterns, but also reduced the viability of future offspring. And so they were not able to maintain these certain varieties over time. Current horticulturists have worked hard to reproduce these colorations without having to infect their crops with a virus. And some of these actually have been named according to the times. For example, many people who were able to afford these very fancy bulbs had them painted so that they would be able to look at the flowers year-round and keep them timeless. A famous Dutch painter of that time, Rembrandt, is actually honored with some of these modern varieties, and they are called Rembrandt tulips in the trade. I'm not sure if we'll get a new tulip mania of any kind coming up in the near future, but it is quite fascinating to think that you could buy a single bulb for more than the cost of a home. I really do like plants, but that seems like a little bit extra. So now we're going to take a little bit of time to really dissect one of these flowers and take a look at what's inside. I got these beautiful lilies for Mother's Day, and so thank you to my husband and kiddos for giving this to me so that we can dissect them on the bistro. As you can see, one of these blooms is a few days old versus the other one that just opened up in the last couple of days. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one. And there's a little ant friend on here too. And it smells heavenly. And right away, I can start to count these floral parts. Like I said, these monocots have parallel leaf venation, and they tend to have floral parts in 3s. And so as we dissect this plant, we will make sure that this plant is following its rules, and we'll count those parts together. When the flower is unopened, the outer layer are the sepals. Because this is a complete flower, which means that it has all 4 floral parts, I'm able to go down into the flower according to the order of these organs. So we'll take the sepals off first. That'll be these outermost pieces. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3 sepals. Now, because the sepals and the petals that remain are very similar and hard to differentiate, we are actually going to put them into the tepal classification. As we are dissecting, we can add these to our sepals since they will be part of our tepal group. All right, so I have 6 tepals, 3 sepals, and 3 petals. And now it's time to come to our next and third floral organ. This is our stamen group, and it also holds the pollen, which is definitely flying all over the place. Stick your nose in here and you're gonna get all sorts of little dustings. So these floral parts will also be in groups of 3. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That leaves me with the 4th and final floral organ, which is the pistil. This pistil actually produces a sticky substance that honestly almost drips. And I was looking at it the other day, just noticing how unique that is. So the concept here is that the pollen is able to stick to the top, and then inside these pollen grains we have the formation of pollen tubes that will go all the way down and into the ovary, so that the sperm inside the pollen is able to fertilize the eggs in the ovules. This part of the plant actually is also divided into 3s. So we have 3 little lobes here. And if I really got my microscope out and started to dissect in here, I would be able to see sections or divisions even within the ovary system. There you have it. I have 6 tepals, I have 6 stamens, I have a 3-compartmented pistil, and I've had a lot of fun along the way. So the next time you get a bouquet, if you've got some flowers in there you'd like to get a closer look at, definitely get your little hand lens out and get to botanizing. Thank you so much for joining us on the Botany Bistro today. Stay tuned for more Bistro to go.